Dear Art Diary, things have been going okay this week. I should have known better because today I put my back out while brushing the dog. I felt it slip and give way and I knew I was in trouble. Of course, the dog decided to find a lizard right at that moment when I was on my knees, trying to figure out a way to get back up. Luckily, she listens to me and she dropped it when I told her to. I'm going to have to take it easy for the next couple of days though. No bending over, so the dog hair on the floor is going to grow into tumbleweeds after a day of not vacuuming, let alone a couple of days. But I'm still going to draw. I'm a champion at sitting on my ass. Hello people, did you give yourself a challenge this week? Mine was to draw hair and try and be more patient and figure out how to make it look better, so let's go take a look. I knew drawing hair was going to be difficult, and it certainly was. It was really hard not to default into the normal messy hair scratches I usually do, and I had to think about how I was going to approach this task and also try to work in the pencil work that I've been learning. I have never had a process for hair, and so my outcomes in the past have always been unreliable, and that's what I really want to work on this week. Today I was completely overwhelmed though on how to figure out a good way to start, and I don't think I achieved that yet, at least on day one. The results aren't too bad, but it's not what I was hoping for, and it felt too much like fumbling around. I did start to see that I needed a bit of a hierarchy of hair clumps and sections to make it clearer which ones are on top or under, like the bottom one, but yeah, it was a rough start. Day 2 and the top hair, I was starting to try and divide the hair into sections, but it was still difficult to draw as some of the parts got more complex and I had to try and sort out which of the clumps of hair would be in front and which are behind. It's not too bad, but could definitely have been better. The bottom one was kind of fun to draw all the shorter clumps going all this way and that, and I was able to get a really good swish going with my hand and kind of got into the zone, and I started to play around with the parts that should be considerably darker in between the hairs as well, and I think it came out pretty good for my skill level. These two hairstyles felt really hard to draw on day 3 for some reason. The top one isn't as nice as the reference. I did have some trouble with sorting out the sections of the hair and the lighting. The bottom one was hard from start to finish, which surprised me because it's white hair and I usually do that because I can't be bothered shading in, darker hair. I thought it would be easier, but the less shading and the choppiness of the style actually made it really hard, and I got overwhelmed with trying to add so much detail and not making it look really dark. I felt bad about how it looked, so I drew in the face a little bit while contemplating why was it so hard. And my conclusion is that I just need to draw more and keep finding ways to improve. Overall, looking back at it now, it's not as bad as I thought it was on the day. Next, I chose the smoother hairstyles after the previous day's messy ones. My thinking was to make it a little bit easier so I can start working out my issues without getting overwhelmed by the complexity and the details of hair. I mean, I want to be able to draw hair without having to draw every single strand, but for that to work, I need to know where and how to use my pencil and my tools to achieve a balance between the two. Even though this is a simpler hairstyle as far as the shapes and the bits and pieces, it was still hard because instead I was focused on the tones and values and the lighting, which made me realise that there is so much more involved in learning to draw hair in a way that I'll be happy with than I first thought. The bottom one, again, I went for what I thought would be a simpler option, and I think it still looks a bit messy. I tried not to focus too much on drawing every strand, but again, I just think I got a little bit lost in this one. The overall results, though, are passable on both actually, so, I just need to move on. On day 5, and I thought I was ready for this awesome hairstyle, and I was up for the extra challenge after doing the simpler ones from the previous day. It did take longer, and I had a few goes at it, tried to use my eraser in a few parts to lift some sections back up, and I think I could have made some areas in the shadow parts darker, but I was too afraid of making a mess of it, so there's really not that much lighting to this one. The bottom one is alright, I guess. I did find the balance between the highlights and the dark colour because the hair was almost black in the reference. That was quite hard. I used a 6B on the dark areas, but it still felt really light. So I might have to have a look at ways that I can improve, get a better value range out of my pencils, because obviously there's, still so much more that I need to know. So that's it for this week. I still have a long way to go with all the things that I'm trying out, but it's nice to actually put a spotlight on some of my problem areas so that I can work on them, even if it's just for that week. Obviously, there are some other skills that I'm using and trying to get better with that go across everything that I do, such as the pencil work I keep going on about, which is just really me hating how messy I am. Also, the discipline to sit and draw each day, that's a huge effort, and to all the people that do that, kudos to you, because that's a great job. And the patience to try and figure things out and take the time it needs to be done, instead of trying to scribble as fast as you can onto the paper and then fixing mistakes constantly from there on. It's also a really nice feeling when I can get into the zone, because I'm allowed to spend as much time as it needs. I'm allowing myself that instead of trying to rush through. So for next week, I'm going to draw heads again, but I'm going to focus on lighting, which is a big part of, being able to do your own drawings. So using a reference for the head and a different reference for the lighting. Not sure how I'm going to set this out just yet, whether it will be 2 drawings of one head with 2 different lighting setups, or a set of thumbnails with one option chosen and drawn out, or even 2 different heads with the same lighting setup. But once I figure that out, I'll put up the Pureref reference sheet. I just need to get a better idea with some of the options, and I will link it in the description. So tell me, if you challenged yourself this week, how did you go? What do you find really hard about drawing? I've been doing a couple of charcoal figure drawings as well on the side, and I feel so out of practice. I had to throw the first one away. It was just a complete disaster. I was actually shocked. And the second one I did last night is awful too, but I'm going to persevere, because I'm sure it's just because it's been a long time since I've done them and I'm just rusty. So that was another side surprise. Anyway, with that said, let's always keep drawing and learning and getting better, because we aren't done yet. That's for sure. See you next time.